I think that we're on the air now. Hello, I'm Dale Matthews, and I'm ready. Are you ready, Mike? Maybe
I
not.
am. Yes, I am ready.
Okay, good.
Yes,
There's
I am. I
a little
am.
lag tonight. We've had that before. Okay, so we're going to start off with a little thing that happened at the City Council meeting, Grants Pass City Council meeting this evening. I told them about how we had forced City Attorney Mark Bartholomew into the court. And for those of you who are wondering, who live in Grants Pass or care about a Grants Pass sales tax, Mark Bartholomew said a couple of fairly revealing things. Let me pull this up. You know that the city had recently put this measure on the ballot that asked the question, shall the city eliminate the $1.79 property tax levy, eliminate the jail utility fee? Is there a difference between a tax and a fee? Even Wally Hicks does not know, and he says they don't know in Salem the difference between a tax and a fee. Maybe there is no difference. And implement a 2% sales tax. So here's what City Attorney Mark Bartholomew said in the court. You're going to want to take note of this. Nothing's permanent. Oh, really? The city can revoke the levy or the utility fee or the sales tax, for that matter, at any time. These are exact quotes. The city council, as a matter of fact, could have implemented this the sales tax without a vote of the people. However, I think it would be politically difficult to do so.
Mm-hmm.
They say it also, and I believe that it'd be misleading if we were to say the sales tax is permanent, because again, it can be revoked. Did you know that?
Well, I know one thing. Sometimes quotes are better as quotes and not exact quotes.
Oh, okay. Well, I do that so that you know that this isn't some plastic tabletop. This is the real wood. This is really what he said, and I want to be sure that you know that it's accurate. We
have video of it too, by the way.
We do. But that's how I got the quotes. So I told that to the city council, and then I said, and the only reason we don't have that footage for you is because of David Reeves. Want to be sure to thank David Reeves for this. We were getting great copies from the city with no problems. And then David Reeves stepped in and said, we're going to stop making those available to you. So we always want to be sure to thank David Reeves for making it more difficult for us to tell you what's happening. But when I spoke to the city council, I said, look, fellas, because it didn't involve Lily Morgan, because she voted against this, said she doesn't think it's a good idea. We all remember when we were in high school, and that it was always possible to fall in with the wrong crowd. You've just fallen in with the wrong crowd. I mean, look at what Mark Bartholomew just admitted, that none of these things needed to be. You think that you're voting for something, but it's going to expire anyway. So what are you really voting about? It's going to expire. Your vote has no effect on it at all, and they could take these things, those sales things off. They could take the levies off now, right now. They could do it tonight. Or they can put it back on right after your vote. Do you feel inspired to vote now?
They're not going to.
Yeah, but the thing is, you have no control over any of this. And as Mark Bartholomew, the city attorney, said, they didn't even need to put this on the ballot. So why are they putting it on the ballot? Because it looks good politically.
Yes.
And I said to him, look, don't fall in with the wrong crowd on this. There are people here, and I was thinking specifically of Mark Gatlin, who were involved with the levies and getting people to sign the petition to put it on the ballot by lying to them, by telling them things that weren't true. Why, that we won't take off 10%. They get 100%. No, they don't. It was a lie. And he and Sherry Adkins, that's Mark Gatlin and Sherry Adkins, I was right there when they did it, were guilty of violating state law by telling people things that were a lie, and you are not allowed to do that. And plus, it's not good for you, and it's fattening. Look, don't do that kind of thing. And I said to the city council, maybe you meant well, but now look at the people who are doing this. Look at the people who are allied with you on this. They're deceiving people. Mark Bartholomew said in his brief to the court that that you don't want to tell the people that it's a permanent tax, although it is, because that would confuse them.
Mm.
It would.
I'm confused already.
Brother. Oh, one other thing about news is that I talked with a couple of the TV stations since we did our special last night and showed you back footage from the special about, what was the topic, Mike?
Motor voter.
Right. And the Secretary of State was there. And one of them did not know the Secretary of State was even in town, in Medford. And the other one said, oh, no, that's today. And I said, no, that was yesterday. No, it's today. I said, no, it was yesterday. We have the footage.
Yeah. You know what? That was, I think, not very well publicized. Although, let me tell you what, the other side knew, and they told all of their friends, and they told two friends, and so on and so on and so on.
Well, I did a little looking into that because I figured that'd come up tonight. And so I went to the Facebook page for some of those groups, the ones that feel that illegal aliens should be given the vote, and they should get to drive cars here, and they should get all the benefits, and they should get to go to college for free or a discount rate or whatever. Of course, they should. Yes, let's just break down the borders and everybody can come here. And they sent out a general alarm to all their pals, saying that since this was Southern Oregon, that it was bound to be crowded with haters, racists, bigots.
Wow.
And they needed to show up to show their force. As it turned out, none of those people who even had any questions bothered to show up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I would like to know how the notification for this went out, because we heard it very late in the game. It was the day before. In fact, I think the night before, we got an email about this, and we went there, and we were the only ones who weren't,
in the bag,
who hadn't had a Kool-Aid infusion before they came to that thing.
We were also the only media. Now, so two of the media sources I talked to, a TV station, said, you guys really scooped us on this one. They wished that they had been there. That's what they said. I mean, one of them was going to send somebody there tonight. I'm glad I was able to tell him, I'm not antagonistic toward him. I wish they'd cover the news. But so we were the only news people there. And what we brought you just an hour after we were there, that just doesn't happen. So you're the only people who knew what happened there, and you probably know we've already posted a video, one of the videos from that. I'm doing a compilation of what a number of people said. Basically, it's the same thing over and over and over again, except for me. And we'll see that you get a chance to see a pristine copy of that. It was on this show. But we pushed back a story for that, and the story was when we had a fellow come in and he briefed the commissioners about what's been going on with the Mining Advisory Committee. And the reason I put up this flag of Oregon behind me is, you look at it, it's mostly blue. But that color that's on there, that's not yellow. That's gold. And there's a reason they were super happy about being a state, because woohoo, we're a state. Okay, all right. If Puerto Rico eventually becomes a state or something like that, they'll probably want to put state of Puerto Rico because they'll be so pleased with themselves. But this color is gold, and that's not an accident, because gold and land with gold on it is what founded this place.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to let you see, and then we're going to comment about it. This is no surprise to you. We know that we do this, and we'll give you a pretty good copy with good audio of that meeting and the things that were said at it. Just remember now, when they start talking about this, the Fourth Amendment It's supposed to protect citizens from unreasonable seizure of persons or person's home or personal property. Now, Congress wants to withdraw mining for minerals from Josephine County, at least when it comes to dredge mining. Okay, Josephine County is named after a gold miner's daughter. It was created in 1856. Josephine County was by the territorial legislature before Oregon even was a state. And the first courthouse was in Waldo, the Waldo Mining District. So recently, the Board of County Commissioners appointed this mining advisory committee to investigate potential mineral values in the county. So the question is, can we have a healthy and prosperous community? This doesn't look like it so far. But the Oregon Department of Geology and Mineral Industries, Dogami mucho, says we have tremendous mineral reserves here. And so I think if the citizens were educated and fully aware of the opportunities and the potential pitfalls available to them, do you think that they would approve of the seizure of their county's potentials? Now, Mike, you mentioned to me yesterday, well, what does our charter say about this?
Yeah, well, the charter basically says that if there is somebody trying to deprive people of Josephine County of their rights in some way,
or even erode the rights.
Yes, or even erode them in any way, that the commissioners are supposed to step up and be advocates on your behalf.
That's what he's going to be asking them to do. This is Dennis Dixon. Here's a question: why has this legislative action occurred without any input from Josephine County? Josephine County is older than the state legislature. Did Governor Kitzhaber's select committee on what they called House Bill 838, did it violate federal mining law? Now, Tom Kitcher, who was also in this room from the Waldo Mining District, he was on that committee, the governor's committee, select committee on HB 838. He was prohibited from even discussing mining law or any scientific details. And you can look to Senators Wyden, Merkley, DeFazio. They're working with environmental lobbies mostly to circumvent the federal mining law. So the question,
you know what? So what? Listen, I understand how people are becoming discouraged at trying to fight these things, because if the deck is stacked against you from the get-go, how are you supposed to get representation? How are you supposed to get a win in your in your little satchel at the end of the game here? How are you supposed to do that?
I can think of only one thing that we can do here locally. Elect a new board of commissioners. You have it in your hands. You can get people in there that are going to say, well, of course I believe in the environment, but can we do something that is somewhat logical? We talked, you remember what Herman Bertschiger, our state senator, said about the environmental lobby and the effect that has on him in Salem. You remember what he said? He's tied up in
specifically, knots. No.
He's tied up in knots.
Yes. Yeah, they're in control. That's the
you can't get anything done. Now, I have a heart. I do personally. I have a heart for environmental type things. I don't want to live in a something hole. I'm not interested in that. But on the other hand, every good thing can just go maybe a little too far.
Yeah. Can you tell me where any of that stuff's happening right now in this state?
Where things are going too far, or where things are
where things are well, I guess going too far.
Yeah,
it depends on what you're talking about. If you're I'm talking about egregious environmental practices not happening. In fact, the only people that I think might be involved in that sort of thing are the people who are supposed to be the heavy duty environmentalist people, the Water Watch people.
At this moment, it sure does look like it's swinging over in that direction, but everything's a pendulum. I think it is. And it doesn't stay way over on one side. It's like the
And
commissioners
can we
laughing
stop
about the fact.
warning about the pendulum, for crying out loud? We're way the hell over there on the left.
Right.
And we're worried over here on the right about getting knocked off the cliff by the pendulum. Hello?
No. When I talk about the pendulum, what I'm trying to do is be a little bit hopeful, and that when things can't get much further in one direction, I'm sorry, this direction for you, if they can't get much further in that direction, then maybe it's time for it to start swinging back, because people say, hey, that's a bit too much. Look at this guy over my shoulder. Okay, now this guy is not in the river wrestling with the fish. He's in the river and he's doing some suction mining. Okay, suction dredging. Now, you think about, people say, well, this is a salmon habitat and he shouldn't be splashing around with the water because it irritates the fish. Now, hold on a second. Let's think about this. Who kills more fish? Somebody that's splashing around in there looking for gold, or fishermen? Really? Really? Who's going to kill more fish than a fisherman? Okay, all right. Or think about this. We've been hearing of almost every month now that 200,000 fingerlings were killed today because someone forgot to turn off the faucet, or the thing was, or they didn't clean the filter, or whatever. 200,000?
How many suction dredge miners would it take to kill that many fish?
How many suction mine dredgers would it take to screw in a light bulb? But my point is that that these guys really splashing around in the water like this.
Okay, so let me ask you, what happens in the wintertime? When there's a lot of rain and the river turns muddy? Does anybody ever think about why don't you sue God?
It's going to kill all those fish
for messing up the river. Now, you might be able to see some trace of this guy doing this, perhaps maybe 50, 100 yards down the stream, and then you won't.
Yeah.
And it's because whatever sediment comes off of that is going to the bottom of the river. And I think personally, very inconsequential. But here's the thing. I believe that environmentalists want to stop people like him from doing that sort of thing. They don't want this kind of mining going on. They don't want any mining going on. And so now, since they've killed off most of the big operations, now they're down to this poor little guy who's trying to, have a little fun, getting a few nuggets of gold. That's the hardest work there is, by the way.
It really is just mostly for fun. I mean,
yes,
mostly these guys are not going to make any kind of living off of this. And then again, I ask you, if we're going to say, well, we should all eat vegetables. Okay, I understand there's plenty of people like that. We shouldn't even eat fish, but if we eat fish, then maybe that's okay, because fish doesn't have a soul, or I don't know what the thought is behind that. Now, wait a second. Who says that their desire to protect fish is more important than this guy's desire to have fun in another way? You're perfectly okay with somebody casting a rod out there and bringing in a fish, and it's drowning.
To that. Hey, Dale, don't say this kind of stuff out loud. It'll be here next week.
Yeah. Okay.
This is where we're at.
Here's the question that Dennis Dixon had for the board. The Waldo Mining District and the Glease Mining District are involved in legal action, and they're saying to the state, you are violating, this is different, federal law. Oh, really? Federal law. Now, here's that never-ending battle between states' rights and federalism. And so we're on both sides. We all are. But the county commissioners definitely on both sides of this. Well, we can't do marijuana because it's against federal law. Yeah, but federal law shouldn't be able to tell us what to do in the state. And we can't have right to die laws because the federal government says no. Yeah, but the state says yes. Well, there are some people, but you don't hear a lot about that all the time. And so, which is right? Voting, and making and being one of the first ones to have a motor voter law, or the federal government, or this on the federal, that on the state. So this time, these guys at the Waldo Mining District, the Glease Mining District, say, wait a minute, you're violating federal law. That's interesting. And they want the county to join in for free and advised the county attorney to at least investigate some questions. And that's where the county attorney, Wally Hicks, suddenly becomes involved. And he says, well, you know, I've kind of looked into this. Here's the tape.
I received late yesterday, and actually reviewed just this morning, a copy of a fee agreement from James Bucall, the attorney who's being retained by the two districts. And the agreement, I didn't bring a copy, but the agreement does state explicitly that the expense of such a case would be borne solely by the two districts. So if the county were to join in, then the agreement, provided it doesn't change, would basically have the two districts funding the thing. So I think that's important to point out at this stage. He represented, Mr. Bucall, Portland attorney, represented and still represents a case in California. A criminal charge was brought against a citizen defendant named Mr. Reinhardt. Correct. Yes, and thank you. And that led to two cases. One that was brought in California state court, another that was relatedly brought in federal court. In federal case, I think didn't make it very far. I think it was dismissed ultimately on a technicality at the appellate court level because the period of the time that the court said that the permit was running had expired. Anyway, but the state court case is still active, and so Mr. Reinhardt is still being prosecuted actively by the state of California, and it's pending now before the California Supreme Court. A lot of the issues there are very similar and comparable to the issues here in Oregon, though this would not be a criminal case. So there's a big difference there. You have an actual criminal defendant in California. In Oregon, I think this would be a declaratory judgment, meaning that we're asking the court to weigh in on basically the legality of this law. And so, I don't know, anything, questions or?
Not necessarily a fine legal opinion, but what is the...
What we're getting at here?
Yeah.
Okay, what we're getting at here is whether the federal law trumps the state law. That's the same argument that they use in California. And so that's been kicked around at the trial court, appellate court, and now Supreme Court level. And that's what this case will be based upon as well. Because, of course, minors depend upon federal law to protect their access to their claims. And the state law here is now, in effect, cutting them off from access to their claims. And so the districts are arguing that the federal law, due to the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution, trumps the state law. And presumably the state would argue the opposite, that there are many exceptions to the Supremacy Clause, and therefore the state can do this lawfully.
So if we would decide to move ahead, what is the time involvement as far as you are concerned?
I don't know. I think Mr. Bucall is going to wind up doing the heavy lifting. The way he phrased it to me was something like he was going to recycle the paper from the last case in California. And that made sense to me because the arguments do seem to be pretty comparable. So time commitment from me or my office, I don't know. I couldn't predict. It wouldn't result in any additional expenditure by the board. I wouldn't be coming asking for additional funds. It would just be absorbed in terms of what our office is currently doing. I think the case would drag on for maybe 2.5 years, realistically. I mean, tell it like it is. So this is a long-term commitment. And taking on the state government is no cakewalk either. And so, I mean, this is a real deal lawsuit that it's all in or not in at all. Is my guidance.
So what are the downsides if just standing back and saying, let the districts go ahead and do what they're going to do?
The downsides of standing back, I mean, you don't get to participate in, if you disagree with the law, then you would be participating in the judge, either the judge ruling on it one way or the other. And so if something the board wants to do is participate in this and have its say and have the judge consider the county's position, if the county takes one, then this is your opportunity to do that. As a practical matter, realistically, if the arguments are good enough, then the judge shouldn't necessarily weigh whether the districts are bringing them with or without the county. Is that making sense? They should be able to win on their own on their own two legs, with or without us. But I can't imagine it would hurt the district's positions if the county were to also join in the action and lend its weight and formality to the plaintiff's cause.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing you saying there's would be a expected minimal cost as far as time and involvement goes as the county and your office.
Yes, I would need to get up to speed on all this, and of course, I've been providing regular updates to the board, and be able to weigh in to with the lead attorney, Mr. Bucall, if the board has any concerns or ideas that they want to be a part of this case as well. So I need to be on top of the case. I mean, that takes time. I've already read in California the two briefs in the California Supreme Court case, the state Supreme Court case, the plaintiff's, or the state's motion and the defendant's motion in that. They're pretty thick, but I have read them, and I've, I think, fairly well absorbed what the arguments are on either side of that case. So I've done a little bit so far. It's going to be, I mean, I don't know, hour-wise, I mean, let's call it 5 to 10 hours a month of my time.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying that the argument is going to be whether federal law trumps state law?
That's the argument.
Okay, so if we make that argument and we enter into this, that could be used as a precedent to trump everything else, including our wilderness areas and our forestry and everything else, right?
Perhaps, yes. And so if we're talking about, for example, the coordination discussion that's been going on, I mean, we are also there relying on federal law. So it's kind of analogous there. We're still relying on the supremacy of federal law. So there's consistency there, I think.
Well, I'm thinking about some of the other things that
other
groups have been asking us in regards to the state's rights to minerals, the state's rights to ownership of the land, turn the land over to the states. You know, the states, you know, that's all this argument. So are we going to be arguing against ourselves?
Yeah.
And, well, now we want federal law to trump here, but we want federal law to trump here.
Yeah, so if what you're describing is the take the land back movement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, there'd be inconsistency, I think. I mean, yeah, either the federal law, either the supremacy clause of the Constitution is meaningful versus states' rights, or, well, I'm oversimplifying there. I mean, the take back the lands movement is a pretty complex argument that I don't think discards the supremacy clause that this case would be relying upon, but does look to other aspects of the U.S. Constitution and sort of, in a very complex and unique way, alleges that there's a basis for the states to take back federal property.
Which, by the way, I don't agree with. So I'm just throwing that out there, that if we're going to be making an argument in regards to, you know, this is going to trump here, but by the way, over here we don't want it to.
Yeah, there might be some inconsistency there.
And if after 2.5 years that we were to prevail, and then they'd say, well, yeah, but you know, you want federal law to trump over here, so you're not going to be able to use that argument over here because, you know.
Oh, I think that could be said. I mean, you have to come up with a way of legally navigating that if you wanted to reconcile the two positions. But yeah, that's an accusation that you're being inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, I could see some angle in there. So I hate to use that word because it's a pejorative in the law. Some angle in there that this is referring to mining laws and not the O&C rules or, you know, whatever. There could be some
or environmental protection, or the acts for protection of wilderness areas or monuments or whatever. You know, that's.
Well, yeah, it's a valid. I mean, it's sort of a valid point, that's for sure. Okay.
And the current issue that we have right now in regards to the declaration of the wild and scenic.
Yeah.
Could we possibly do this again next Tuesday?
I'm happy to be here.
And that would allow Commissioner Hare to
because he's not here. He
be in the conversation as well. Okay. And then to provide whatever info that you know that we might want to have, or we could ask you questions on it. I mean, because these are those tangential that go off, and then you say, oh, initially you don't even think about, it's a slam dunk, and then you realize, oh, son of a gun, not quite a slam dunk as you'd hoped it would be. So
I wouldn't call it slam.
Well, he's not even here to. Well,
none of us.
Leave a note for him.
This is a long, hard slog that'll probably wind up at the state Supreme Court level, as it did in California. So it may be a fight worth engaging.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
So.
I mean, that's the thing. Obviously, I mean, I think is the general will of the board. We were very concerned about Josephine County, Oregon lands, and we want to have more of a say-so into how those are used and abused, but to have more of an input into that, rather than just standing back and saying, okay, you know best, and tell us what we're supposed to do with them. But yet there is the reality, too, that if you're going to buck up against the wall, you better have a pretty good idea that you can get across that wall, over that wall, or through that wall, rather than even starting the fight, because the consequences of those fights usually are bad for the one who is taking the fight. You're going to lose, and you're going to lose big. Right now we lose, but we're not losing big, and it could get a whole lot worse if we're not careful in one sense. So there are some permutations of that I think that need to be thought about and looked at. So are you comfortable saying, let's look at this next week? Or?
Well, I think the commissioner here should be.
Oh, yeah, I do too.
Because, anytime you're talking about going into a lawsuit, and I always look at it, what benefit would be derived for doing this, for putting the county out there. And, the districts are going to pay, they said they're going to be paying the bill, but any money going into our treasury, even though we're not spending any money, what is going to be the largest benefit? I mean, to me, there's very little benefit usually in a lawsuit. I mean, I like to avoid lawsuits regardless. I don't think they, even though my son's a lawyer, but I just think that when you're talking about public bodies, you end up, when you take it as a government position, there's people in the county that have disagreeing opinions, and it tends to divide the community. And so I think that has to be really carefully considered as to what the benefit would be for county government, not individuals in the county, but county government. If we're going to go into it as a county government. So that's,
and you say
there is not a full board at a general discussion until the 29th. However, you guys do have an admin on the account.
Well, let's schedule it for the admin on the 10th, and then we can. He'll have the information. We'll all be able to have some mulling time.
He will have this
information.
Okay.
Well, you can put it on your agenda.
Yeah, we'll add it in the technical policy, and we can still target the 9th also. For discussion of litigation.
Okay. Now, when at the end, just one last thing. Wally Hicks says we can also target the 9th for a discussion. Now, what is he talking about? We can target the 9th. The 9th is a day. The 10th is the admin session. The 9th, he's not talking about the weekly business session. He's talking about their weekly gathering with him for secret conversations with their attorney, where nobody will know what's happening. The Daily Courier doesn't even want to show up. They prohibited us from showing up by declaring that we're not media of any kind. We're coming up on 300,000 views, but we're not media of any kind, you see. And so they would certainly love to get together and talk about the political ramifications of taking a stand to back anybody in the county that doesn't, as Cheryl Walker pointed out, directly benefit the county by putting money into their accounts.
It's a recurring theme with her. And the gist that I got watching that was Keith Heck, scared rabbit, and Cheryl Walker, not only does she not want to have a fight with the federal government, she's actually in agreement with not fighting them on this situation, because I think that she harbors this is the gist that I get from her, is that those are her people over there that are going to make things harder on the miners. And by the way, miner person across the table, what have you done for me lately?
Yeah, she did say that
Wow.
that if they're more wealthy, that doesn't benefit the county in any way whatsoever. You could donate money to the county. She actually said that.
Right. So let's just get rid of mining, and no one can ever benefit from that. Oh, and by the way, government isn't for benefiting anybody but the government apparatus. That's the only thing.
We can't even take a symbolic stand. Can't do it, because that would just be backing the citizens and wouldn't directly put money into the budget for the county commissioners. They can't back us because they might get in trouble. You know, we back the people all the time, and we do get in trouble. So suck it up and do it anyway.
I got to tell you, though, there is something about this struggle back and forth between federal and state supremacy that I find just confusing, and some ultimate result has to pan out from this, because otherwise you're never going to be able to get to an actual conclusion.
I'm sorry, that'll never happen. Not on this issue.
Listen, and the federal government, I think they cause more problems than they're saving you from here. So, but the problem is that our state government, they're just as oppressive. They're just as much out on the left in terms of rules that impact miners and people that are working with agriculture and people that are working with in the timber industry and things like that. So
they are now. Nobody in our audience is going to, when you're talking with your neighbor, don't fall for this thing of, well, we need to be consistent. We're not consistent in anything that we do in this county. And I'm not just being critical. I'm just saying we sometimes say, Cheryl sometimes, well, the federal government, sometimes, the state government, and sometimes the county government. We're all over the place. And the idea, this straw man that she always comes up with in one way or another, this idea that if we take a strong stand and saying federal laws triumph, then that means that later on they're going to say, well, you can't have this other thing. First of all, they're not talking to each other. Okay, they don't coordinate. They're not that monolithic. And the other thing is, we do it all the time, everywhere. Just look at marijuana, or don't look at it. Just smell it. Look, this is ridiculous.
Or smell your neighbor's marijuana.
It's
that's right. Ridiculous. You can't, because it's indoors.
Right. Unless they have a greenhouse, and then that's outdoors. Okay, yes. Don't get me started on that. I don't use it. I just think these ideas, these rules are so ridiculous. They are ridiculous. Okay, so don't fall. Now it's convenient for her to say, well, we have to be consistent. The Board of County Commissioners has to be consistent. I mean, that's just laughable. Sorry. So what do you think about this? One of the things that they asked Wally Hicks, and he said, this is going to, and I've said this, let me put myself on the line here, and then you grill me, Mike. I've said Simon Hare believes that he needs to belong to every club and every group, and we need to pay, $50,000 for this and $30,000 so he can go sit on a board somewhere. And I've made the argument that if the O&C counties are going to get the federal government to move at all, they're not going to say, well, we have to leave out Josephine County because they didn't pay their dues this year. Give me a break. That's ridiculous. Okay, it's going to affect all of us. So I've argued that having our county with its financial condition at the moment stand back and say, we care, we want to keep track of it, but we will not be able to come to every little meeting that you have, and we're going to participate via Skype. We'll participate via phone. We'll send you an email instead of going to these things and having Simon fly all over the place in order to go to a coastal conference, okay? So that says stand back, and it will happen even without you. That then argues against what I might say in this, where the commissioners, I think for different reasons, were saying, well, maybe we ought to stand back, and and as Wally Hicks pointed out, they should be able to defend themselves. Isn't that right? Am I wrong on this, Mike? Take me to task.
No, but that's a handy way of getting out of taking a stand on something that's important to people and the kind of the heritage of the county. I mean, I personally think, and I'm biased on this. I think that that the board of commissioners should take a stand and support the miners. Because listen, there's so few of these guys, their impact is almost zero, but you have more and more of these regulations and regulating agencies moving in all the time to stop you from doing anything. And this thing here, it's insidious. This new thing, it stops any new claims. Because they figure these miners are a bunch of old guys that are going to die off, and then you're done. No more.
All right. Now, one of the
Zero.
constant themes that we've heard from and don't forget the gold in our flag, one of the constant things that comes up with the Board of County Commissioners, especially with Cheryl Walker, is, look, we're a tourist mecca. Why, we ought to put all of our beans in the tourist magic basket, because that's what's going to happen. I don't know if you guys know this. Some of you keep track of some of the things happening in Europe. I've got a couple of friends there, and gold fever is all over Europe right now. They just, I don't know what happened over there, whether it was a movie or some kind of book or just people just hyping each other up, but they're just crazy about gold right now, okay? And there are people in Europe who would be willing to pay just about any price to come here and pan for gold like they did in the old days. I don't think they're going to be taking a wagon and taking it apart and climbing over a mountain with the wheels on their back. But I mean, they want to participate in some of this. And so, well, kind of like what happened, in the 1950s with everybody wanting to go to a Western town and have a shootout.
Yes.
These guys want to come here. This is one of the few places they can come. They want to come here and pan for gold or dredge for gold.
Well, and I'm familiar with what's driving this. I'm a big fan of a couple of different gold shows that are coming out of Alaska right now, so I understand, how that's driving enthusiasm about this kind of stuff. I would tend to think that they would probably go to Alaska quicker than they would come here, because Alaska, you can actually do stuff there.
If you're talking about weather and climate city, I would really prefer with our weather here to do it here instead of Alaska, but okay.
No, I agree, but that's not going to be open to people. I mean, it would be hard enough to get something like that off the ground just with the current regulatory environment that we have right now.
Oh, the regular, yeah, right. Well,
I think they would be on those people left and right all the time.
But if however, if you're in Alaska, you might get involved in a hand-to-hand combat with a moose or an elk. Yeah. Here, you don't need to worry about moose and elk, just maybe rotary that are trying to take you down. So,
but see, up there, they can pretty much do almost anything they want to. They're open pit mining, they're doing all kinds of stuff, up there.
For that, I like the idea of the freedom, but yes, but if we're going to be a tourist industry, then maybe some people in the audience don't know. There's what I understand is there's only one basic small operation store in the entire West Coast. And it's right here in Josephine County. The last one closed down in California quite a while back. It's right here. And so there's two things working on it. One of them is, will this even be allowed for small scale miners? Okay. And the other thing is, what about the sales tax? Okay. So look, you don't want, I think that the idea of this place closing down is kind of too bad, because here's an opportunity for sane recreational mining that could potentially be part of a tourism package People would come here from all over the place. Look, let me give you an example. Let's suppose that you had a safe way to go to, not that Safeway, and not Hagen either. Geez, I'm not going to shop there. But let's suppose that you had a safe way to go to some place like Botswana, okay, and do a little, a week of diamond mining and think that you might come out of there with a real diamond, okay? Well, you might potentially take the wife and kids to go see such a thing. I mean, if it was safe. It's not going to be right now, but if it was, okay? So let's suppose that someone in Europe had an opportunity, or Japan, to come here and enjoy the river and have that best piece of pie in the county, and also enjoy doing a little bit of gold mining. They're not going to make anything, but I mean, they might actually try to catch a salmon. Okay. Well, okay, that's cool, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm totally for that. I think you're still going to have problems doing that just with the regulatory environment, as I mentioned before. But that doesn't even. I'm not concerned about that as much. I mean, that's fine. It's nice to have that as a tourist thing. But what about these guys?
Yeah.
There's not very many of them, but it's their right. They bought the thing, and when they bought the thing, they had a reasonable expectation that I'm going to be able to do this for this given period of time, and no one's going to be able to stop me from doing that. And now they're stopping them from doing that. And really, who are these guys hurting?
Well, let me tell you how
are they doing this?
Let me tell you how ridiculous it's gotten. If you're going to run one of these little things, little put, okay, it doesn't even make much noise. We're not talking about industrial. We're talking about some guy he's a miner. He's a small miner, which means he's diminutive and everything. And he's there, and he's in the river, and he's doing this kind of stuff. And he's got this little, this would even shut down battery powered dredges. Come on,
battery power.
Okay, but he's there, and he's got his little gasoline powered thing, and it's not going. It's not like a motorcycle. It's but just the little things. It's like David Reeves not allowing us to get good quality videos. These little things just trip you up. Right now, the way the rules are is you cannot bring a gas can within 25 feet of the river. If it's 24 feet, you're in a bunch of trouble. Okay. So you mean to tell me that you're going to have to walk 50 feet? Now, how the heck are you going to get the gasoline into the little thing? You'd have to pull it all the way out, put that in it, and then pull it back. And technically, you're still transporting gasoline back to the river. Okay. I get the idea. I truly do get the idea. You don't want that stuff spilling into this, but this isn't the Exxon Valdez.
And what but the problem is that what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it so cumbersome that you'll just go, I don't want nothing to do with this. I'm not going to take the risk of, somebody coming and giving me $50,000 worth of fines because, my gas can is too close to the water. Listen, you know what? Why are they doing this? Why? They'll say, well, we're concerned about the fish. No, they're not. They just want to stop people from doing stuff.
Fishermen kill more fish. Fishermen kill more fish than dredge miners. Come on.
Hey, listen.
That's what the fisherman's there for.
If we don't stand for the dredge miners, they'll be coming for the fishermen next.
The old World War II analogy. Yeah, I know.
It's going to happen. It is.
So I love that idea that you brought that up, Mike, because here's the question. First of all, do we have commissioners have any backbone? Well, we already know the answer to that. When Simon gets back, he's fought some fights, but he's not going to fight against the federal government. He hopes he can go back to Washington, D.C. and not have to get somebody coffee anymore. He's probably not going to go for this, and Cheryl's not going to budge. And Keithek doesn't know what he thinks. He won't know until his brains get back in that building. And that's Simon. Okay, so are they going to do anything at all? And I think you can see which way the wind is blowing already. Well, really, wouldn't it be better if we look? Can you take a symbolic stand? Like I said, symbology is better than nobology. Isn't it possible to kind of take some kind of stand to support the citizens on something? Well, I took a stand the other day and I said that I thought kittens were wonderful. Oh, really? Is that all we can do? Really?
I'm making a note to myself to look up biology as soon as the show is over.
It's something I made up, so it doesn't exist. I'd be really surprised if it did. It's like the lady that's investigating us to find out who's doing all of our backing, our financial backing. I'm looking forward to that report, lady. Okay.
Well, here's one of my big beefs, and there's some people talking about this in national politics right now. We don't win anymore.
Yes.
We don't have fights because we perceive that we're not going to win. And when you're so defeated that's what your state of mind is, you're going to lose. And that's going to be your life.
This rolls back to last night. Here we were in this room. We were surrounded by people who had warned each other, oh, you got to show up on this motor voter thing because the bad guys are going to be there and they're racists and they're terrible people and they just want to drive everybody. And so we were there, and I know that there were a couple of people in that room who had the similar point of view of, well, can we at least ask a question? But they were so cowed by this whole thing of, well, I don't know, there's an awful lot of people in this room. It's easy for me to say, and for Mike, because we do it every week. But there are a lot of people who's talking about weak who are just a little too weak to stand up and say, I don't think this. Look, even Simon Hare. Things happen with the other two committees. I'm going to call them names, and you slimy maggot and bastard. Hey, my mother didn't like that. No, I wasn't. And so this thing happens right in front of Simon. Now, is it possible that this guy could say, I think you're maybe going a little too far there, Mr. Heck, or I think, that's just not right, Cheryl Walker. He won't even do that. Now, he's a county commissioner. How much trouble could he get into by standing up for a citizen? These guys aren't going to stand up for citizens. They're too afraid.
Yeah.
Do you remember the story? And I'm almost done. Do you remember the story where we told you weren't there, but where the federal government, it was the Secretary of the Interior, had come to Medford. They're not going to come to Grants Pass, so you can forget about that sales tax. And so here he was, and the commissioners had said in an open meeting, well, we're going to go there and we're going to give them a piece of our mind. Boy, we're just going to read them the riot act. We're going to tell them all the things they need to do for justice. Do you remember how that worked out, Mike? I've heard the story a couple of times.
Yeah. They didn't do anything. They sat on their hands, and a few citizens from here got up and said things, but they didn't say nothing.
I was one of them. Sandy Casanelli was one of them. She's a disgraced, horribly disgraced. Oh, no. But she's still at all these meetings. When was the last time you saw an ex-commissioner, even that was not ridden out of town on a rail, because she wasn't, but even with parades and everything, they never show up at these meetings. Where's Mark Gatlin? I'll be at every meeting. No, you won't. Okay, not until he's running again. So there was Sandy Casanelli saying, hey, federal government, and these other guys are just sitting there and they're like,
yeah,
give me a break.
And you know what? If you don't stand up, then you're guaranteed you're going to lose. And listen, this whole thing, when we're talking about coordination and we're talking about, all of our dealings with the federal government, we are going to lose every single one of them. You know why? Because you've already determined that you've lost before you come to the table. So, if you want to win, you're going to have to come up with your game face on, and face them. And you know what? You might tick somebody off. No, you might. That's life, and when you're dealing with your kids, when they're growing up, sometimes you have to tell them things they don't want to hear. And you're not going to be their friend anymore. Well, you have to think, okay, I'm an adult. I'm not my child's friend. I am his custodian. And it's my duty to make sure that he graduates into adulthood with some values and is a decent human being. Well, so how are you going to do that on the behalf of your county? You can't even face somebody that might get mad at you for the opinion that you hold.
And what are you going to do? There's a little bit of a challenge to you. What are you going to do when you see that Mike and I are there? I'm there a little more often than Mike. And week after week after week, we say, We got the videotape that shows what you just said is not true. We have these facts. We got these details from you. And the only people that criticize them, they're yelling at and they're pressing and they're calling us names. Calling us names? Hey, you're a pervert and you're a hacker and you're a social deviant. Hey! And this is happening, and it's happening in front of Simon here. But you know what? Sorry. This is also happening right in front of you. And I appreciate the fact that you come up to me privately and say, I really appreciate what you do. That's great. Thank you. That is our only reward. But you know what? I talked to a couple of them. I said, if you're not going to come to a weekly business session, and they're not, and you're not going to write a letter to the editor, and they're not, I said, could you maybe go on Facebook and like something? And just yes. Click on the like button. Well, maybe, it's clicking a button. And
sometimes you need more than a secret friend.
I'll tell Cameron Camp.